Good morning, or maybe afternoon where you folks are. Welcome back to Fireline. Those of you who were here last week, remember we were talking to Kevin Caron about what's true and what's not true, separating fact from fiction when it comes to welding, and letting people like me, certainly a beginner, having only been doing this for about a year now, know what I need and what I don't need. Kevin and his friends at welding.com, weldingweb.com, weldingtipsandtricks.com certainly helped me along greatly when I was trying to figure out one end of a welder from the other. And Kevin's back with us today to answer some more questions. Kevin, good morning. I guess it's morning where both of us are.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Thanks again for taking the time to be with us. Last week we talked about the differences between TIG and MIG and talked about some stick in there. And I wanted to further that discussion when it came to buying a machine. When I bought mine, for example, I had to have 220 power brought in. To the average homeowner, the average ranch owner who wants to get involved in this like I did, am I looking at a 110 or am I looking at a 220 machine?
Boy, what a great question. You can go with 110, a 110 MIG, and you can get a machine that will handle up to about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a quarter if you really pushed it, worth of welding. Or you can go with a dual voltage machine, which is even handier. The only problem with the dual voltage is with the 220 volt, you're going to get the full capacity of the machine, let's say 200 amps. You switch it over to 110, it's going to drop down to about 100, 110, 120 amps down, down in that range. So you're kind of limited to the power that you get off of the 110, but it sure is handy to have that capability for like when you go out in the backyard and you got to plug the machine in out there to fix the gate on the back fence or something.
So that it sounds like that dual voltage is more fact than fiction. The dual voltage machines really are good.
They are very good. I've got several of them here that I've been playing with for a while now. And if I have somebody else come in who wants to work in the studio with me, they're using one of my 220 machines, I can get out the 110 machine, go to the other side of the shop and plug it in over there somewhere and still be working. So.
Okay, along with that, it kind of leads us naturally into the difference in wire size. When you hear about, here's a good one. I keep hearing about 0.023, 0.024, 0.025. And then it jumps up to 0.030, 0.035, 0.045. Is there really that much of a difference between 0.23, 0.024, and 0.025?
Not in my opinion, no. I've got some 0.23 here that I'll use for those really tiny welds, so they're really thin welds. If I'm working on a very intricate sculpture, a little desktop sculpture, I'll get out one of the smaller machines, I'll put the 0.23 in it. That lets me get down inside, make nice, tiny, artistic welds, if you were, cosmetic welds. If I'm building, like a structure, I've got a gong commission that I'm building, so it's almost 9 feet tall and 6 feet wide. So big, heavy, lots of big, heavy steel. I'll go to the 0.35, the 0.30 or the 0.35, so I can get a wider weld. I can get a bigger fillet on there, so I've got more penetration, I've got more hold. It's more structurally sound.
So I'm going to be using 0.30. This is a question. 0.30 or 0.35 for regular welding. If I'm doing that hinge that you talked about on the back gate or something like that, I'm not doing a 9-foot gong like you are. I'm just welding on the gate. 0.30, 0.35 good?
I'd go with the 0.30 actually. It's just a great versatile size. You can turn up the wire feed a little bit and put a little more wire down if you want to do a bigger weld, or if you got to fill a gap because your fit up wasn't correct. You can turn that wire feed down a little bit and turn your voltage up just a little bit and you can make a much smaller weld, and get more penetration, but not have a big glob on there that you have to come back and clean off. All of my MIG machines, except for one, right now are set up with 030. That's what I use 90% of the time.
Okay, so it sounds like, again, coming back to somebody like me who's doing normal stuff around the ranch or the home, I'm going to be looking at a 030 wire for middle of the road for most of what we're doing. Is it a good idea to keep a spool of the smaller and a spool of the bigger on hand?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You always have an extra spool or two laying around, just so if the situation changes, or if your machine is set up with 023 and your next door neighbor comes over with his tractor and says, "Hey, could you?" You can always pull out the 023, put in the 035, and fix the plow, or weld the hitch back on, or that just makes the machine that much more versatile. Having the different size wires around is just like having the different diameters and different types of electrodes for your stick welders around. It just makes the machine more versatile.
I keep looking here between you on the monitor and my laptop down here, which has information coming in all the time with emails and everything else. And I'm sure you've seen them before. But I'm looking here, and it also talks a great deal about, when it comes to wire, the difference between gas and no gas. Looks like flux core and steel wire. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two?
Well, gas, running a mixed gas on your MIG machine with a solid core wire is going to get you a very clean, a very pretty, with minimal cleanup weld. It's going to be a very nice looking weld. In my opinion, in my experience, running flux core is going to get you a good weld. There's nothing wrong with the weld itself. It's just going to be uglier. You're going to have to chip the flux off of it, just like you would with a stick welder. You're going to have to grind it off a little bit. You're going to have to get all the little splatter off of it a little bit. There's more splatter with flux core than there is with gas. So I always go with the gas.
Again, staying with the information I'm looking at on the computer right now, there's also an email that came that wanted me to ask you about the difference between single source machines and multi-process machines. I'm fooling around right now with a longevity and MTS, I believe. It just got here the other day. Let me put it to you this way, and something I think that everybody can understand. When technology first gave us the ability to fax, have a telephone, the all-in-one copier, do everything, the problem I had with it, and everybody I think did, was that when one thing broke down, everything broke down, nothing worked. Has our technology advanced to the point now that these multi-process machines are worth it to have the best of all three worlds, or should we still stick with a sole source, in your opinion?
Boy, that's a really, really tough question. I've got a multi-process machine here that I've been testing now for a few months. It's a great machine. I don't know what the electronics are inside, how intermingled all three functions are with one another. So like you say, if one goes down, does it kill the whole machine or not? I find it works very well. It does a very nice job. The duty cycle's a little low on it, but for more of the home user, for more of the artist, for more of working with the smaller metals, wonderful machine. And it gives you that versatility again of, I can have the MIG machine set up, I can do all my tack welding, I can just flip a couple of switches and turn on a different gas bottle, and I can get out the TIG welder, I can do all my cosmetic welding, and then once I get this whole structure built, I can switch that machine right back over to a stick welder to do my heavy structural welding to actually weld the sculpture to the base. It's all in one machine now, so you don't have to keep hauling them around. And because of the inverter technology that's in them, they're using less power, they're creating less heat. You know, I think they last a good long time. You know, none of these have died, so I really don't know how long they last.
How long have you had yours?
I think I've had it about 8 months now.
Yeah, there you go. Kevin, again, I want to thank you for your time. I've got probably 6 or 7 more issues I want to discuss with you, but we're going to leave that for the 3rd week, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
A lot of myths I found out there, and there's a lot of facts that you need to know. So with that, thank you for joining us this week, and we'll see you next one. Thank you.